In this first recording for intermediate access, I want to talk about one of the advanced table design or table building skills, and that's defining field and table validation. There's an old adage that says, and while I'm speaking here, I might as well open the database. The database I'm using is one called Pizza Orders. You should find it in your student files under recording support or whatever folder I end up calling that. Let's open that up so that it's ready to go. And there's an old adage, as I was saying, that the data or the information that you get out of your computer is only as good as the data you put in. Short way of saying that is garbage in gives you garbage out. So what we're doing with validation, what I hope to do with validation is to help ensure that the user types of valid data into the fields. And before we start that, let's just go over this database real quick. It only has two tables and a form that's there for a little bit later for one of the other recordings. It has two tables, customer table and the orders that those customers placed. Those tables are linked. One customer can place many orders. One order is placed by one customer. So those tables are linked. And let's just take a quick look at the customers table. Just to simplify things, this doesn't have a lot in it, just the customer's first name, last name, phone number, and a customer ID number. That ID number is an auto number field. The book cannot effectively use auto number fields because when they have you import data or when they have you copy records from one place to another, there's no guarantee that the auto numbers are going to be the same value. So that makes it very difficult for the book to use auto number fields, but at least in my world, most databases, the primary key of each table is what the book calls a surrogate ID, or just a made-up ID number that Access makes up. So most of my tables have auto number fields as their primary keys. It's just a number that Access assigns to that field that we use primarily for linking. Change the size of some of the columns, so we'll save that. Here's the order table, not much different there. Also notice that I'm using plural versus singular. If you read the book, particularly that appendix for this chapter, they talk about how to name tables. There is no consistency here within the industry on whether it should be plural or singular. I use plural because this table contains lots of customers. That's kind of the way I think about it. Other people use singular and say this is the customer table, the one that takes care of the customers. Also, since this is the first Access recording, notice that all of my objects have prefixes on them. TBL for tables, FRM for form. That's also a standard used within the industry. Primarily if this database is going to be used as the back end of a computer program. Might have a computer program that provides access to this data. If it does, having those prefixes makes programming a lot easier. Plus it helps organize and sort things over here as well. So I'm going to follow the unit or the tutorial 5 standards and put prefixes on all my objects. While I'm at it, you'll also notice that all of my field names are what are called Hungarian notation. Hungarian notation, the first word is lowercase and every word thereafter is capitalized. That's Hungarian notation. There's no spaces in the field names. If I wanted these column headings to have spaces, then I could have assigned a caption. But again, often I build databases that are controlled by computer programs other than Access. Access reads the databases, and so the names are important. The captions are not used by those computer programs. This is an order for a customer. When did they place it? Notice the link to the customer table. Who placed the order? What size? What kind of toppings do they want? Do they want a soda? And if they want some cheese sticks, some coupon, did they use a coupon? And then finally the order total. One thing about the order total, normally I wouldn't include that in a table. I've included it here for a couple of demonstrations, but normally that's calculated based on what you ordered, soda, cheese sticks, whether you used a coupon or not. This total might be different. So that might be a calculated field, which in general you don't store in a database. You simply ask for it with a query. And I will tell you that in order to generate these totals, they weren't initially in this database. In order to generate them, I used queries with some fairly complicated equations that said if they picked pepperoni, if they picked sausage, if they picked a soda, charge them based on the size. If they pick cheese sticks, charge them based on the price of cheese sticks, subtract the coupon, etc. So I actually did a formula that was a little more complicated than I wanted to include in this example, so I copied all those values in here. All right, let's go to design view here. And there again is my auto number field for the order ID. And now let's start adding some table validation to these fields, or excuse me, field validation. There's two kinds of validation. There's field validation where we check the entry that the user puts in right away. And then there's table validation that checks to make sure that the entire row, the entire record, is valid to the best of our abilities. And we'll talk about those two different ways of doing things. First thing I want to make sure is that the user doesn't accidentally enter an order date that's in the future. So here's my order date column, and what I want to do is designate a validation rule. Validation rule, you put in here some kind of a condition, like you put in an if statement, if it's less than or if it's greater than, and I want to make sure that the order date is not in the future. But how do I get today's date? Well, if you're not sure, you can always use the builder. This builder button appears in 3 or 4 different places in Access. So I'm going to click on that builder button, and an expression builder comes up. And let me try zooming in on that just to make it a little bit bigger here and see how my zoom skills work. Down here at the bottom of the screen, you can see I'm zoomed in. So I'm going to come up here, and I want to say that the date has to be less than or equal to, you can see the zoomed in version down at the bottom, the current date. How do I get the current date? Access comes with a bunch of built-in functions. If you expand functions and then click on built-in functions, you'll get a list of categories over here. I want the date time category, so let's see if there's something here that says today. By the way, when I'm zooming like this, my mouse moves a little slower. Nothing called today. Here's one called date. What does that do? Down here at the bottom, it tells me it returns a variant type, don't worry about that, that contains the current system date. So that's what I want. So I'm going to double click that. We're going to use this expression builder again in the next unit when we build some advanced queries. It allows you to create calculations or to zoom in if your calculations are long and see them in a table like this. Right? And so there's my formula. Click on OK. And I think I can unzoom now, so let's see if that works. Okay. And so there's my validation rule. This is the rule that the data has to apply. So let's test that. I'm going to got to save the table. And now you're going to get a warning message saying, you've applied a new rule. What about the existing records? Do you want to apply that to those as well? You could say yes or no here. I would assume that all the existing pizza orders that I have in my database are less than today's date. Or in the book, a lot of the examples have years in the future, 15s and 16s, that don't make a lot of sense except to keep the database kind of current the longer you use the program. That's why they use those future dates. But in many databases, you want to make sure that the date that's entered here is not in the future. So I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to add a new record. This little button down here at the bottom, right in the navigation bar, there's a little arrow with a star. Allows me to add a new record. I can also add a new record up here. They both do the same thing, or I can just scroll down to the bottom. Either way. So I'm going to click on this button since I'm there, and I'm going to enter a new date here. I'm recording this on July 12th, so let's put in August 1st. Notice I'm not adding the year. If you don't add the year, Access automatically puts the current year in there. I press Tab to move to the next field, and I get this lovely error message that for most people is completely gibberish. It's hard to understand. So our standards, our requirements. Now I want to cancel that because I want to change my error message. To cancel this, you press the escape key once. That cancels your entry, and if you press it again, it cancels your new record. Notice that my pencil has gone away here. Go back to design view. For every validation rule, you should designate the validation text. That's your own error message. What do you want Access to tell the user if they don't follow this rule? That the order date cannot be in the future. So let's test that one. Save it. Okay. Add another new one. 8/1 tab, and now I get an error message that most people can understand. If they can't understand it, there's only one person to blame, and that's you. So every time you put in a validation rule, make sure you also put in the validation text. And now the user cannot enter this date, cannot enter a date that's in the future. Just cannot do it. You cannot save this record until you fix that problem. So in this case, once again, I'm going to press escape a couple of times because I really don't want to add a new record with that bogus data in it. So that's one kind of validation that's very commonly used. Go back to design view. Let's add another one. And what validation you use really depends on your own standards and your own rules. You have to think about what are the rules. So here I'm going to make up a rule, and I say that the cheese sticks have to be less than or equal to 20. If you look at my existing data, if we went back and looked at the existing data, all the cheese sticks are up to maximum of 20. So I'm going to say that that's the rule. And I'm going to immediately apply or put some validation text in here. Number, or let's put it this way, please place a separate order for large numbers of cheese sticks. Kind of elaborate, but you get the idea. So let's test that one. Okay, it's going to ask me to save. Do I want to apply to the existing data? Now in this case I'm going to say yes. I'm going to get an error. That it first implies that there's some cheese stick values in the database that don't meet this requirement. Well, if you go look, there aren't any, but there are some that are null, that are empty, where nothing was entered. Could have entered 0, but I left it blank. Those empty cells are what's causing this error message. Okay, do you want to keep testing with the new setting? Yes, I want to keep testing with the new setting. And so now it's made the new setting. And if we come over here to the cheese sticks, drop the list down, notice there's 5, 10s, 15s, and 20s, but there's also some blanks, and it's those blanks that cause that error message to occur, and that's not a problem. So once again, I'm going to add a new record. And come over here to the cheese sticks and try typing in a 25. Tab. And immediately say, please place a separate order for large numbers of cheese sticks. Okay. So that seems to work. Again, escape a couple times. What you should also do that we didn't do with the dates is test to make sure that valid values work. Press escape. Let's try it with a tab. That works. And let's go back to the date now that we have the validation on that and make sure that today's date works. That's always a good test. And it accepted it. Excuse me. So my validation seems to be working. I'll press escape to cancel my new record. And let's add some more validation. Another common validation is to have a value that is in a range. For instance, my coupons. We obviously aren't going to have coupons with 0 values. All of our coupons are at least 50 cents, but no more than $5 at our company. I'm making up these rules kind of as I go. Easy way to do a range of values is to say between 0.5 and 5. You'll learn more about between when we get to the query assignment in Unit 2, but that's available for validation rules. It's very intuitive. Between 0.5 and 5, what that does not necessarily assume is that 0.5 and 5 are legal, but when you use the between operator in Access, it does include the endpoints. So in between here, I can say coupon value must be between 50 cents and $5. Let's put it this way, a little easier to read. All right, let's test that one. Save it. Do you want to apply it to the current data? Yes, again, there's some blanks because some people don't bring in coupons, so that's going to cause errors, but I'm going to go with it anyways. Add a new record. Come down here to the coupon. Here it is. Okay. And let's try a 49 cents. Not legal. 50 cents. That's legal. $5. That's legal. $5.01 is not. So that's working the way I want. That's a good way to test, is to test the boundaries. 50 cents is legal, $5 is legal, and test just outside of those ranges to make sure it catches things. So that seems to be working now, and there's my $5. We tested some values that are acceptable, so I think we got that covered. Press escape until the pencil goes away to cancel my new record. Okay, one more. Our sizes in our database. There's only 4 that we allow. So in my validation rule, I want to say the size must be either large or small or medium or personal. And the easiest way to do that is with the in operator. In is an operator that allows you to, in parentheses, provide a list of values. And you don't even have to put quotes around. So I'm going to say large, medium, small, and personal, parentheses. And when I press tab Access automatically puts the quotes around it. Access will do a lot of this, a lot of automatically putting quotes in, automatically putting backslashes in, those kind of things. Access is, behind the scenes, is based on a language called SQL. SQL has certain rules called syntax that you have to follow. Access helps you out by making sure you follow the rules. You could have typed those quotation marks yourself. And now for the validation text, let's just say, please enter large, medium, small, or personal. Save it. Now everything should have a size, so this shouldn't cause any additional errors. Everything's good. All the sizes we have so far are small, medium, and large. So let's just do one more here. Let's put in a Volker should get yelled at if he's in large, medium, small, or personal. Okay. So I'm going to put in large. Notice it doesn't have to be capitalized, right? We're going to fix that in the next recording. But it accepted it. And let's make sure all the other ones work. They all work. Okay, so that's field level validation. Again, I'm going to cancel my record here. There's a second kind of validation. It's used a little less often because there are limits to how effective you can do this, but it's called table validation, and even that's a misnomer. It's not validating the table, it's validating the entire record. All right, so for this example, I want to make sure that when the user enters in a coupon, that the value of the coupon is less than the total price of the pizza. Right? That's just a rule. It has to be less than. The customer has to pay something, so we're going to say less than. We could make it less than or equal to, let them walk away with a free pizza. But I don't want them giving me a $5 coupon for a $3.50 pizza and we give them $1.50 back. I don't want that. So that's two fields though. Right? What you can't do is in design view go into the coupon, say this coupon value has to be less than the order total. You can't do that. You can't compare two fields using field level validation. We have to use table validation. To get to the table validation, we have to use our table tools when we go to design view first, and I need to get to the property sheet. In Access 2013, the property sheet comes over here in a little pane. It used to be sitting on top of everything, but now it's in a pane. And if I click on the record or the entire table selector over here, that's not getting it to me either. If I just click down here someplace, let's get, and here's my validate, that did do it. Here's my validation rule. I can type in whatever I want. So once again, I'm going to use the builder. I could use the button here, but this one automatically comes with a builder button. Click on the builder. And again, so that it's large enough, I'm going to zoom in or add a zoom window down the bottom of my screen. And now what I want to do is make sure that the coupon value is less than the order total. Now when you're doing these, often Access, depending on circumstances, Access will give you a list of the fields that are in the table. So here's my fields. Instead of typing them, I can say that the coupon has to be less than, my zooming isn't, well, my mouse is down here. The coupon has to be less than the total. And so there's my formula. Could have typed that. Square brackets, Access puts them in to be safe. If your field names have spaces in them, then they're required. But remember, my naming standards, everything is Hungarian notation, so there are no spaces, so I don't even need them. So I could have simply done this. And notice Access is helping me when I do that. Coupon is less than the order total. Here's a bunch of order stuff, and there's the order total. That list is dropping down with the choices. So Access even helps me with these little pop-ups of suggestions as I'm typing. And notice then if you pull it from the list, Access adds the square brackets. You don't need to use the builder. I'm going to cancel it. Cancel my zoom as well, and just come right in here into the table orientation validation rule and just type it here. And again, I'm getting help. Order total less than, whoops, wrong one. Let's do coupon less than the order total. Again, I made a rule, so I should provide some text. In English, coupon value must be less than the order total. Click in a different box to save that. Close it. Save it. Yes. You want to apply the rules to the current records? I could say no because I trust the current records. I'm going to say yes. Once again, I'm going to get errors because there are some coupons that are blank. But now I'm going to test a new record. And there's my new record down at the bottom. I'm just going to test this. I'm going to put in the order total. And let's say that the order total is 350. And then the coupon. The reason I'm doing it backwards like this is when I press the tab key after entering in the coupon, actually that's not going to make any difference. I put in my coupon, $5. No problem. $5 is an acceptable coupon value. This is $3.50. How come it's not yelling at me? I haven't tried to save the record yet. Okay. Table validation does not occur until you leave the record. So I have to leave this record. I'm going to press tab. I'm going to add a new one. And now I get my error message saying your coupon value must be less than the total. So you have to try to leave, either by clicking on a different record, get the same problem. You can't leave. There's an order. There's an error now. Now this can also cause problems. If you have the wrong validation in there, you could be putting in valid data and the user's not allowed to save it. So you need to test all this validation to make sure it works. So let's put in an order total of $5. That's not good enough either because the coupon must be less than. So let's make the order total $5.01, and then it should accept it. It does, and now I have this excess record over here that I'm going to get rid of. Notice that the ID number is 430. Why isn't it 425? Whoever was using this database, probably me before, has already inserted record number 425, 26, 27, 28, 29. It's already inserted records using those ID numbers, and then probably deleted them or moved them around or something. And Access, if you delete them, will not reuse them. So here's my 430. If I delete this record, watch what happens when I enter a new one. And you put in some data. It's 431. So every time you add a record in Access with auto-numbered fields and then delete that record, not cancel, that's what I'm doing right now, I'm pressing the escape key to cancel, not canceling, but every time you delete the records, those ID numbers are never reused again. That's by design. This really doesn't really matter because these ID numbers don't mean anything. 423, maybe it's the 423rd order it was placed, but who cares? The only reason that ID number is there is to provide a primary key, and if it was appropriate, link it to another table. Okay, so that's how you do data validation, first at the field level, and probably foremost at the field level. And you can also do table level validation by using the validation rule in the property sheet for the table. If you have to have more than one rule here, then you put an AND in there, and then add some more. We'll take a look at the AND criteria in Unit 2, but you can have multiple validation rules, but you won't be able to do those, tell which one of them was broken. If you have 3 rules and they broke one, how do you know which one it is? There's really no easy way to do that. And that's why many people write computer programs using Visual Studio, maybe even web access to build these databases. Initially, they build the databases and then write computer programs that access them because those computer programs have much more power.